Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to your weekly astrology forecast for the week of October 6th through the 12th. I am your host, Laura Chung, and I'm so glad to be back. I had a magical trip to Scotland. So last week I wasn't able to do the weekly forecast, but I'm so glad to be back. This week we have a full moon in Aries and sort of a mixed bag of astrology. We have some of the sweetest transits and also some of the most challenging. But ultimately, October is a month of integration to see where the dust settles post eclipse season and to really focus in on your dream, your vision, and what's the most important thing to you so that next year in 2026, you take action on those things. Now, let's start from the beginning. On Monday, October 6th, there is a full moon in Aries at 14 degrees, and this happens at 11:47 p.m. Eastern Time. Please adjust for your time zone. Now, I really like this lunation. This lunation symbolically ends eclipse season. We are experiencing a full moon in Aries for the first time that's not an eclipse. There was a solar eclipse in Aries back on March 29th, and it was a solar eclipse in the sign of Aries at 9 degrees. And so this is kind of the 6 month like closure of that. Something will be coming into fruition. All of your hard work that you put in at that time, you might be enjoying the fruits of your labor. This is also the harvest moon. And actually, this is Chuseok, which is Korean Thanksgiving. And this is a time for Korean people to honor their ancestors. We do something called jesa, which is we have offerings for our ancestors and we celebrate with our family on this day. And this is the full moon where, you know, it was celebrated through many different agricultural cultures around the world. And actually, if we're thinking back in time, most cultures were based on agriculture. And the moon is an important symbol um, of the cycles of nature. And the cycles of nature is something that we cannot deny as part of Earth and a living being. So at this time of the year, this is when people, when we used to be more of an agricultural society, we would sift through, let's say we were harvesting apples, we would sift through the apples to see what was good and what was not good to eat and not good to consume. And so this is also a time when, this is Libra season. We're getting into the fall. We're in the fall officially, and we're getting into the colder seasons in the Northern Hemisphere. This is the time when we take all of the harvest and we start to kind of like take stock of everything and say, okay, what do we need to sustain for the colder months, the months that Earth is going to be resting, and how can we preserve everything to sustain us for the months where nothing is necessarily growing, but everything is resting. So I think, we can think about taking, we can think about and take stock of where we've been in 2025. This is the 10th month of the year. We are in the last quarter of 2025. What were some of your goals and intentions for this year back when Aries season began in March? And where are you with those goals? Where are you with those intentions? I know a lot of people have been feeling really burnt out and have been feeling a sense of despair. And that is by design, by the way. They don't want us to feel a sense of hope. They don't want us to have energy and the will to create change. So, this full moon is in the second decan of Aries, which is ruled by the sun, where the sun is exalted. And this is symbolized by the Three of Wands. Let me see if I could. Okay, the Three of Wands. And this is a card about creativity. This is a card about expression. This person is waiting with three wands in this like cliffside looking over. Now, I don't know if you remember the monthly forecast that I did with Stephanie for March when we talked about the solar eclipse in Aries and how That was in the first decan of Aries, which is ruled by Mars, and that's represented by the Two of Wands. And yes, it gives a lot of like colonizer vibes. It's like you wanting to go out and get something or take action on something, right? It's very Martian. I want to do the thing. I want to accomplish this goal. It's very Aries, right? Aries is the risk taker, the warrior, the leader, the pioneer. And now at the Three of Wands, which is the full moon in Aries, this is kind of waiting by the harbor and seeing the fruits of your labor, and kind of like Aries is still a very initiative, action oriented sign, but this is more like, okay, I did the thing, and now I'm kind of like, all right, I'm gonna see what comes to shore. I'm gonna see the harvest of my of like all the work that I've been doing since March. So I think this card is very on brand with this full moon. This full moon is ruled by Mars in Scorpio, which is the other sign that Mars is ruled by. So Mars is in its domicile in the sign of Scorpio. Mars loves being in Scorpio. It's the nocturnal expression of Mars, whereas Aries is the diurnal expression of Mars. But Mars in Scorpio is it's quiet action. It's going beneath the surface. It's being intentional, focused, determined. I've spoken about Mars and Scorpio a lot, and I find it to be, if there was like an animal to be expressed by Mars and Scorpio, it'd be the orcas, like very strategic, very stealth, very moving quietly in the waters and being very focused and like not distracted. And I think this energy is very helpful around this full moon because, there is a lot of noise and there is a lot of like, what is AI? What is true? What is fake news? What is propaganda? And I think that adds to people having the sense of overwhelm. This full moon to me ultimately is asking us like, how can we be a little braver? How can we be a little bit more courageous and take a little bit of a risk? Um, I watched this TikTok video of this man, and I think if I remember correctly, he's Asian, but I don't remember his name. So if you know this creator's name, please comment in the comment section. But he was talking about the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, and how to change timelines, they always did something weird. I don't know if y'all saw that movie. It's so good, actually. But if you remember, they do like the weirdest things to change the timeline. Like they would drink like, or they would chug like a bottle of orange soda. Mm. And it reminded me of how you have to do something different in order for you to experience change. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. And I think that is what is so great about Aries, is that they take action, but they don't allow the perceived failure or something not working out to deter them from trying again. And it reminds me a lot of like Virgo energy. Virgo to me is like the editor. They keep going because they are perfectionists, right? They know that things could be better. Mars is similar in a way, but in a different way. Like Mars, Aries being ruled by Mars is more like, I'm going to do the thing because I know it's going to work. And if I take action, there's no way it can't work. And that is the energy of this full moon. And considering everything going on in the world right now, the United States to me has always been a fascist country. It has always been about the erasure of indigenous people and its legacy of chattel slavery. And now, like, the prison industrial complex just being a new form of slavery. Oh my God, I see the full moon right there. And so it's always been about this. but it's been veiled with this, marketing myth and lore around the American dream. And every empire needs a myth and a lore for the people to buy into it. And that's ultimately what I think Neptune going from Pisces to Aries has been revealing to people. The United States Sibley chart has its natal Neptune in Virgo. So the last couple of years, the United States has been going through its Neptune opposition. And so the opposition is like the nature of a full moon. It's 180-degree, and people are really seeing what it is. Like the American dream is a fallacy, like that picking up by your bootstraps is nothing but a capitalist lie. So this is all to say that this full moon in Aries, having its ruler being Mars and Scorpio, I think is about taking action, taking very strategic, focused, determined action for your vision, for your life, whatever that might be, right? Three of Wands. Um, like you have to show up every day at an individual level to do the thing that you are meant to do, and then also being a steward of this earth. Like I don't personally believe that at this point in 2025 you can do something so selfishly. I think anything that we do has to be rooted in some kind of collectivist mentality, and that's something that I think a lot about because I'm from a collectivist culture, but I don't live in a collectivist country. And I do think that the United States needs to go through some culture change because it's so individualistic and also capitalistic. And that is not conducive to the future that we're all co-creating. Um, So on the same day, Mercury enters Scorpio. And so going from Mercury in Libra, where it's very social, um, very like, yeah, relational, making connections, making contracts. Now Mercury goes into a sign where it is the most quiet and silent. They call Mercury in the water signs mute, but I just think that when Mercury is in water signs, it communicates in different ways. It's able to receive information in maybe more intuitive ways. You're able to connect the dots in ways that are more deep um and not so obvious in the way of speaking. And then the very next day on October 7th, Mercury in Scorpio will square Pluto retrograde in Aquarius at 1 degree. Now, this day, some hidden truths might come out. Both Scorpio and Pluto have this energy of deep, um, deep. Because Scorpio is ruled by Mars, like I said. Um, it is a fixed water sign, so it has this depth to it. Pluto is the god of the underworld, and Mercury and Pluto have a very interesting relationship because Mercury, well, Hermes in Greek mythology, was the messenger of the gods. And so, Mercury, when people transition to death, Mercury would be the one to escort them to the underworld. And so, this could be a transit where you might be receiving some news that is hard, is difficult, some truths that were buried deep, like family secrets, or somebody betrayed you, or something comes to the surface where it's hard to take in. But ultimately, this is the news that will help you heal, that will help you break free of something. At a collective level, when Mercury in Scorpio specifically squares Pluto retrograde in Aquarius, this could just be more disclosures, more things coming out about the Epstein files and who's on the list. Just further a continuation of that story. This could be abuses of power in our government, which is not hard to believe. Um, and yeah, just like mercurial figures too. Mercurial figures being like news people, journalists, um, and the square is a 90-degree angle. It's the nature of Mars. It's a difficult aspect. So, power dynamics between journalists and their like networks, like what we've seen with Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel, could continue. And just maybe backlash. Um, this could also be a transit where there's some sneaky shit going on, like the fact that the fact that TikTok was just purchased by essentially is not real. It's now is not real's app, and Palantir surveilling us, and just like we are going deeper and deeper into a surveillance state. This could be more of that kind of thing. So just be careful also with your security, with your identity, because this could also be a day where you have identity theft or somebody tries to steal something of yours. um and yeah, this is also a day to use this productively. This could be a day where you stand up to an abuser or an abusive situation at work or in your personal life. You want to look at where you have Scorpio and Aquarius. And those two houses are having this clash. Okay. On October 8th, Venus in Virgo will sextile Jupiter in Cancer at 23 degrees. Now, this aspect has been perfecting for a couple of days and will go exact on October 8th. And this is probably the sweetest aspect transit of October. So you really want to take advantage of this. Yes, Venus in Virgo is in its fall, but ultimately it's in a sweet sextile with Jupiter in Cancer, which is exalted. Now, when the benefics are in a harmonious aspect together, this ultimately, at the end of the day, this is positive, right? Because Venus wants to form bonds. Venus is the planet of attraction and beauty and value and worth and just like all the lovely things in life. And Jupiter is the greater benefic. Jupiter expands. Jupiter wants to grow something, especially in the sign of Cancer. However, um, I have been witnessing a different side of the benefics this year, especially Jupiter in Cancer, especially when we're talking about like the collective. I think personally, Venus in Virgo, sextile Jupiter in Cancer is positive. Like you might be receiving care or help or an assistance from somebody like a feminine figure. And when I say feminine, I don't just mean women, but like caregivers, nurturers, people who want to help you. I think of Venus and Virgo and Jupiter and Cancer to be about like health providers, healthcare, nurturers, caregivers, mothers, people who want to care for you and assist you. But at the collective level, this could just be like more fuckery of the United States of America. Like Jupiter in Cancer, this is like the United States Jupiter return. It has just becoming more and more clear that their nationalist agenda is just expanding. And I don't know if y'all saw Pete Hegseth's speech with the military people and generals, but it was just like really cringy to watch. Um, but anyway, the United States is unabashedly just showing that it has always been this, that it's always been about militarism and white supremacy and just all like the awful things that a country can be. Um, and so in the one hand, I think everybody will experience this at their in their personal life in a positive way. I think look out for what happens collectively, because this could just be more expansion on nationalistic things. It could also be more what is it? Like I don't know how they could have more like oppressive laws coming out against trans people. By the way, the fact that they come so hard for trans people is so laughable, because trans people are such a minority. They're like less than 4% of the population. That's like so little. And the fact that they are so like threatened by trans people just shows you why trans people are so important, because trans people are people who are unabashedly authentically themselves, and they embody the fact that gender is fluid, and all of these like binary ways of thinking is just not real. Like I just think that the more we can protect the most marginalized and um the people that are the most marginalized, like disabled people, trans people, non-binary, all the people like young people, children, all the people who are the most vulnerable, which is like Jupiter and Cancer, the more we can protect ourselves. On October 11th, Venus in Virgo will oppose Saturn retrograde in Pisces at 26 degrees. This is another difficult aspect. So like I said, this week is a mixed bag, because I think that we're experiencing like the polarity of the sweetest aspects, and then right after you're going to experience a difficult one. When Venus opposes Saturn, I guess this could be something that you're confronted with, like an authority figure, a Saturnian figure that says no to something. Okay, so you want to look at your Virgo house and your Pisces house, and these houses would have been pretty like you would have felt them during September during eclipse season, because you had two eclipses in these houses. You had the lunar eclipse in Pisces on, when was it, September 7th, and then you had the solar eclipse in Virgo at the end of the month, September 21st. And so Venus has been going through your Virgo house, trying to mend some things, trying to maybe like mend some relationships, try to like form new bonds, try to like heal some wounds that you might have experienced during eclipses. And then Saturn went back into Pisces early in September, and finishing off Saturn in Pisces era for the last 3 years. And I think that's why these eclipses have been even more difficult, which with Saturn's presence, because Saturn has this very serious and somber tone. When Saturn has been in Pisces, I felt very like heavy energy, just like a lot of grief and mourning, um, over people dying, quite frankly, on a consistent basis over the last 2 years. Watching people being murdered is a fucking terrible thing to watch. Um, and so Venus in Saturn, Venus opposing Saturn, you might be confronted with grief, especially if you lost somebody recently, a feminine figure, perhaps. But the way I would use this energy is to confront somebody if somebody has been fucking around with you, you know? I don't know why I'm cursing so much. I think it is this full moon in Aries, because I'm an Aries, you know? And honestly, I just feel like I just don't give a fuck anymore. I'm like, I was trying to um be so careful with the language on TikTok, because I don't want to get another like strike on my account. But I'm just like, you know what? Take it if you need to. Again, for the second time. Um, anyway, I digress. the best way to use this energy is that if you're being bullied, if you are being like oppressed in some way, again, like a Saturnian figure, like a boss, or just somebody who's like cramping your style, this is the day to form a boundary. This is the day you say, no, enough is enough. Um, Whenever there is a transit with Saturn, I try to embody Saturn just so that Saturn doesn't fuck me up. For example, when was it? It was the new moon solar eclipse in Virgo that was opposing Saturn in Pisces, and they were happening in my so the new moon in Virgo was happening in my 10th house of career, and Saturn is currently transiting my fourth house. I decided to honor Saturn's energy by embodying Saturn. And I told my parents, do not go anywhere on this solar eclipse. And because of other things going on in my chart, I was like, I want you to be careful. I don't want you to get into an accident because they every eclipse they go off and they don't listen to me and they get injured, they get sick, whatever. And I'm like, I'm not messing around now. You have to stay home. You're gonna, you're just gonna like chill out on this day. So I became Saturn. I became the no to my parents, and I embodied that energy. And so that's how you can use um this day, this transit, by also embodying the elements of Saturn, because the energy is going to be there, and so you might as well use it to your advantage. Another way this could manifest is somebody confronts you and somebody's like, yo, like you've been out of line and I need to confront you about this. And the best way in these situations is to listen, and try not to get defensive right away. Like try to listen. This is like all about conflict resolution. Take accountability when you need to. But I think so many people end up losing relationships because they are just avoidant, a conflict avoidant, and then they don't want to take accountability for it. And that includes yourself. That's another feature of this full moon in Aries is about the self, and the sun is in the sign of Libra, which is about relationships. And so this full moon can really have you confront how you show up in relationships, and like your need for safety and security sometimes might trump the ways in which you can lean into discomfort, to not be avoidant, and to listen to what the other person has to say, and to take accountability when you need to, apologize when you need to, and ask, okay, how can I take responsibility for my part in this, and how can we both move forward if that is what the relationship is asking for. But in my personal experience, I look back at so many of my relationships and I'm like, damn, if I could if there's one lesson that I wish I had known back then, was like my lack of maturity and my lack of be wanting to be right and having my ego get in the way and being avoidant and just walking away from relationships where I was like, you know. But growing up and maturing, which is a very Saturnian thing, is recognizing that and doing better the next time. So that's the transits for this week. Like I said, we have very sweet Venus in Virgo, sextile Jupiter in Cancer. Then we have some crunchy ones, Mercury in Scorpio, square Pluto in Aquarius, and Venus in Virgo opposing Saturn in Pisces. But I believe that a lot of these transits are here not to bury our head in the sand, but to use these energies to help us grow. The whole purpose of these difficult transits is to get uncomfortable, to lean in, to be vulnerable, to remind ourselves that none of us have the answers to everything. None of us know what we're doing. We're just trying our best, and we're trying to do whatever we can to improve our own lives and also make this world a better place. So, anyway, that is the week's astrology. I am so grateful to be back. I love you all, and I will see you next week.